Hello everyone, I'm still in beautiful Rome. Today we're gonna go off the tourist trail and venture outside the ancient city to explore lesser known sites. Walking along the Aurelian walls, we learn more about the best preserved ancient monument in Rome. Have you heard about the Pyramid of Cestius? Let's go! The 19-kilometer-long walls of Aurelian were built between 271 and 275 AD. They were only the second rampart since the foundation of the city in the 8th century BC. The first, known as the Servian Wall, were erected in the 4th century BC by the Roman King Servius Tullius, hence the name, and encircled 7 main hills of Rome: Palatine, Capitoline, Quirinal, Viminal, Esquiline, Celian, and Aventine. For centuries after their construction, although Rome had significantly expanded over the Republican defenses, there was no need to fortify the areas. There were simply no actual threats against the city. In the 1st century BC, Rome became the most powerful empire in the world, and thanks to its military power as well as clever governing, all opponents had been defeated and lost their ability to resist. As nothing lasts forever, the power of Rome began to fade along with the rule of Commodus during the end of the 2nd century, who was, by the way, wonderfully portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix in The Gladiator. His megalomania, tyranny and paranoia left the empire without a successor, and any virtually influential people who could restore Rome's former glory were executed by him. Cassius Dio, a senator under Commodus, excellently summarized the beginning of the end: from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. From the Lateran hill we're heading southwest, and now we're passing by the gigantic baths of Caracalla to finally leave the city through Porta Ardeatina. In the 3rd century, Rome became much more vulnerable. Aurelian, who spent a significant time on the battlefield and was actually first proclaimed emperor by the legions and then recognized by the Senate, defeated Alemanni, a confederation of Germanic tribes, as well as Goths, Vandals, Jutungi, Sarmatians, and Carpi. So he knew probably better than anyone else that Rome has to be better fortified, hence one of the greatest projects of the century: new city walls. Originally 8 meters high and 3.5 meters thick, the new ramparts featured towers at intervals of 29.6 meters, which equals 100 Roman feet. The walls, however, didn't enclose the entire city, but rather the objects of the most importance, the aforementioned 7 hills, as well as the Trastevere district on the other side of the river Tiber, the Campus Martius, and protected million inhabitants of Rome. Moreover, it's worth noticing that armed units counted around 25,000 people, which wasn't enough to secure the entire length of new fortifications, but also the most likely enemy, the barbarians, preferred surprise attacks on the weakest defense points instead of a long siege. As the need for a strong defense of the city didn't diminish in the following years, the walls of Aurelian were raised to 16 meters and its towers strengthened by Maxentius, already in the 4th century AD. In the 5th century, Emperor Honorius once again modernized the walls and the gates within. Eventually, the wall featured 18 gates, 9 survived until the present day. The entire length of the walls today reaches 13 kilometers, and they're an integral part of modern Rome. I've been wanting to visit this pyramid for a long time. It's rarely mentioned during debates about the pyramids, probably because we know so much about it. But it actually is the best preserved ancient pyramid in the world. We're walking now along Viale di Porta Ardeatina. Here, part of the Aurelian walls had to be entirely rebuilt. It happened in the 16th century after the sack of Rome in 1527. Although the construction works of the Aurelian walls were finished after only a few years, most sources mention 5, Aurelius never saw the wall finished as he died a few months before its completion. Such a rapid realization of a comparatively huge project may be due to the fact that already existing buildings have been incorporated into the walls, such as a section of Aqua Claudia or the Pyramid of Cestius. The Pyramid of Cestius was built in the 1st century BC, sometime between 20 and 12 BC. Gaius Cestius Epulo performed 2 official functions. He was a praetor, a civil official, which means that he administered civil law and presided over the courts. More prestigious, however, was his second function as septemvir, a member of a religious commission responsible for preparing and supervising religious feasts and banquets. It must have been a very lucrative position considering the spectacular tomb he left behind. The site of the pyramid's square base measures 100 Roman feet, so it's 29.6 meters, and the height of the pyramid reaches 37 meters. It's actually huge. In the photos, the pyramid seemed to be much smaller. But why a pyramid, such an extravagant form? During Cestius' lifetime, Egypt was trendy, especially among nobility. It was the time when Octavian Augustus defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. That's when Rome was being adorned with ancient obelisks, sculptures portraying sphinxes, and a variety of smaller pieces of art were embellishing the gardens and houses of the most affluent ones. So clearly, the funerary monument of Cestius was modeled on the Egyptian burial structures, but it's been still undetermined where exactly did the influence come from. According to scholars, its size and steep shape excludes the Old Kingdom pyramids in Giza. Norman Neuerberg, an American scholar, stated that the Pyramid of Cestius was inspired by the New Kingdom private Theban tombs, which were topped by small pyramids. I showed you them in my episode from Deir el-Medina, link below in the description. The most popular theory, however, is that the Pyramid of Cestius was modeled on the Nubian pyramids in the ancient Kushite kingdom, called Meroe by the Romans, as almost right after the conquest of Egypt, the army of Octavian Augustus headed south and reached the Napata region, where the pyramids stand. Even if Cestius didn't take part in the campaign, he might have heard about them or seen their image, as during his lifetime, General Petronius, who seized the city of Napata, sent to Rome thousands of prisoners and war trophies. It's also possible that the pyramid was inspired by an inaccurate image of Giza pyramids, as up until the beginning of the 19th century, when the series of publications called The Description of Egypt faithfully recorded Egyptian monuments, most of the artworks found in Europe were displaying their artistic interpretations rather than their true image. The pyramid naturally features characteristics typical for Roman architecture. Let's start with the material. Under the pyramid's smooth marble cladding, a distinctive feature of the Old Kingdom funerary structures, there's a layer of brick, and the core is made of concrete. The burial chamber, measuring around 6 by 4 meters and less than 5 meters in height, features a barrel vaulted ceiling, an extensively used architectural element by Romans. Instead of the sarcophagus, a funerary urn held the ashes of Cestius. We can't unfortunately venture into the pyramid as it's open for the visitors only on certain days in month end. Mea culpa, I haven't checked that beforehand. Both sides of the pyramid feature the same inscription commemorating the deceased. Gaius Cestius, son of Lucius of the Pobilia, member of the College of Epulones, praetor, tribune of the plebs, septemviri of the Epulones. One side, however, has 2 additional engravings. One describes details of the pyramid's construction. The work was completed in accordance with the will in 330 days by the decision of the heir Pontus Mela, son of Publius of the Claudia, and Pothus, freedman. Just west of the Pyramid of Cestius, another famous passage in the Aurelian walls, the Porta San Paolo or Porta Ostiensis, as it marked the beginning of the Via Ostiense connecting Rome with Ostia. The original 2-arched entrance is covered by a single arched gate built in front of it in the 6th century. Although the gate belongs to the Aurelian walls, it was probably erected only in the 4th century by Maxentius, whereas the height of 2 towers was increased in the 5th century by Honorius. Even though the Pyramid of Cestius was an unusual funerary monument, it wasn't the only pyramid in Rome. Another pyramidal monument stood between the Mausoleum of Hadrian and the Vatican Hill. It was described as larger than the Pyramid of Cestius and of a greater beauty, covered with marble slabs, but its owner as well as the exact date of its construction is unknown. It's estimated, however, that it must have been built between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD. Over time, the inscriptions on the Pyramid of Cestius faded and were covered by lavish vegetation. It was believed in the Middle Ages that the Vatican Pyramid was a tomb of Romulus and the one we've just seen of Remus, the mythical founders of Rome, hence the pyramid's other name, Meta Remi. Paradoxically, the incorporation of the Cestius pyramid into the Aurelian walls saved it from destruction, as the pyramidal monument in the Vatican was deteriorating and eventually was disassembled in the 16th century. Today we can walk on its remains. Its marble encasing was used to pave the stairs of St. Peter's Basilica. We're back at the intersection of Viale di Porta Ardeatina and a huge multi-lane street, Via Cristoforo Colombo. These enormous arches were added only in the 20th century, while the ancient gate is located on the right. It's quite an inconspicuous rectangular passage. Although the gate was a part of Aurelian walls, it had been built 2 centuries earlier by Nero. It still hasn't been decided if Porta Ardeatina was like the other principal gates or merely a postarulla, a small secret exit. Its name, Ardeatina, derives from the ancient city of Ardea, today one of Roman districts, which was one of the oldest towns in the Western Europe, founded in the 8th century BC. The final appearance of the walls is largely due to Honorius, the Western Roman emperor who ruled from Ravenna. However, only a few years after their restoration, Rome was invaded and plundered in 410, the first time in 800 years, by barbarians led by the Visigothic king Alaric. And another massive entryway in Aurelian walls, the Gate of San Sebastian. It's the largest gate in the Aurelian walls, placed at the tip of the Appian Way, hence its ancient name, the Porta Appia. Due to the importance of the Via Appia, the gate was exceptionally busy. Supposedly there was a large parking lot for the private means of transport just in front of it, as private transit within the city wasn't allowed, even for emperors. Originally, the gate was erected by Aurelian, rebuilt by Honorius in the 5th century, adding, among other things, a marble cladding. A quick rest at the so-called Fontanella di San Sebastiano. Assembled from sarcophagi and a tomb monument, like many on the Via Appia route, where I'll take you another time. Today we're heading in the opposite direction, back to the city. One of the most mysterious structures in Rome, located right behind the gate of San Sebastian. Although known under the name of the Arch of Drusus, it's certain that it isn't the monument of Nero Claudius Drusus, a general who died towards the end of the 1st century BC. The arch is a little over 7 meters high. Made of travertine, the structure probably featured 2 more arches on the sides. Although its main body is sheathed with marble, its columns are entirely made of Numidian marble. In the 3rd century AD, an aqueduct built by Caracalla, known as Aqua Antoniniana, was erected over the arch. Some scholars claim that the arch was also built by Caracalla, as the arches of the aqueduct over the city's main thoroughfares were often beautifully decorated. And Porta Latina. It got its present appearance in the 6th century AD. There are many tombs in the vicinity of Aurelian walls, but none equal to that of Cestius, although it might have been perceived as excessive or even absurd during its construction and perhaps even in the centuries that followed, but it perfectly fulfilled its purpose. Even though there's a handful of people who know who Cestius was, his pyramid has been famous for millennia, and with it, his name, as Thomas Hardy, an English poet, wrote. Who then was Cestius, and what is he to me? Amid thick thoughts and memories multitudinous, one thought alone brings he. I can recall no word of anything he did. For me, he's a man who died and was interred to leave a pyramid. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe, like and comment below. Share my content with your friends to help my channel grow. And see you on another ancient site.